analytics should be considered absolute bread and butter for any marketer. I take a bit of issue with the distinction that people will draw between marketers and digital marketers. It's 2019, we live in a digital world. If you're going to be working in marketing, you've got to be comfortable with things like Google Analytics. And I think one of the reasons why people will often hold it at arm's length is not because they're not capable of working with that information, but simply because when they go in there for the first time, it's just information overload. There's an awful lot of stuff there that you can potentially access. So what I'd suggest is that to begin with, you just identify 2 or 3 KPIs that you know are really important to the business that you're working with, and just focus on those. So I want to talk through a small number of KPIs that I most frequently refer to, KPIs that I would argue are universally applicable to all businesses. Now, the first of these is traffic sources. Now, very often people will go into Google Analytics, they'll look at total traffic, they'll start to reach all sorts of conclusions, but actually that total traffic in itself is meaningless. We want to know what channels specifically are working, and then we want to compare that using external tools like SimilarWeb, for example, to see how that compares to competitor traffic sources. Are they generating traffic? Are they generating exposure from channels that we're not, or at least we're not to the same degree? Because those gaps, they represent our opportunities. Secondly, you want to look at website engagement, by which I'm really talking about bounce rate, average page views, and average time on site. And what you're going to see is that if bounce rate is going in one direction, average time on site and average page views are almost certainly going to be going in the opposite direction. Now, this really matters for a couple of reasons. First of all, it's a great indicator as to the user experience, and whether or not people are finding what they want to find and then they're enjoying their experience on the website. Secondly, it's a great indicator as to the overall trust of the brand. So you'll almost invariably find that when you go into analytics for really trusted brands, big brands, you tend to find that they have extremely high levels of engagement in comparison to newer brands or brands that have less exposure within that market. Now, this has a couple of really important implications, because it's going to have a big impact on the conversion rate, on the value that you take from each one of those customers. But on top of that, it's also going to almost certainly impact positively or negatively your SEO rankings, because all Google wants to do is rank great content from trusted brands that are delivering a great user experience. So if you've got positive website engagement that's improving over time, then that's almost certainly going to mean good things from an SEO perspective as well. The third thing I'd encourage you to look at is the landing page traffic. So it's very easy to go into analytics and see that the total traffic or the traffic from particular sources is going up or going down, and reach all sorts of definitive conclusions from that. But actually what we want to know is what's happening to the pages that are actually going to generate value in the short term for the business. And typically that will represent quite a small proportion of the overall traffic volumes. So very often a lot of websites might generate 80-90% of their traffic to their blog. And I'm not saying that blog traffic is of no value. In the long term, it can be a great indicator of future performance levels, particularly if you've got a nice data capture and you've got a good nurturing process. But in the short term, it tells us almost nothing about how that website is actually going to put money in the bank. So we really want to isolate the traffic that's coming into those key landing pages that are actually going to convert. And by that, we really mean product pages, service pages, and category pages, maybe the home page as well. So if we create a segment within analytics that isolates that traffic, we're going to instantly see a much clearer picture of the commercial performance of that website. And often we'll find that it might be doing the complete opposite to what the total exposure of the website is achieving online. Finally, we have goal tracking. Now, the very first thing, in my opinion, that any marketer should do when they take control of a website is establish what it is that website is actually trying to achieve. Once we know that, so let's say, for example, it's a professional services company that wants to generate inquiries, whether that's over the phone or via email, or maybe it's an e-commerce site that needs to generate direct revenue online, or maybe it's a more information-based site that generates revenue via advertising. But once we know what the objective is, we can create goals within analytics to track those in a very specific way. And more than that, we can actually attribute direct monetary values to each time one of those goals is triggered. So let's say, for example, that we're a professional service company, let's say we're a law firm. Each time someone sends an inquiry through the conveyancing page, for example, we could say, right, we know that on average, a conveyancing job is worth £1,000 in profit. And it's really important we're focusing on profit, not revenue. So let's say it's worth £1,000 in profit, and let's imagine that 1 in 5 inquiries we convert. So 20% conversion rate, that would mean that every time we get an inquiry, whether it's over the phone or on email, we know that that is worth effectively £200. Now, of course, these require lots of estimates. It's not an exact science, but we can start to build up a picture that, of not only the total value that the website as a whole is generating, but actually each individual channel. So at the end of that month, we can say, right, we can see that this month, LinkedIn has generated for us £6,000, Google AdWords has generated £20,000, and Instagram has generated £3.70. Now, of course, it's more complicated than that. Maybe Instagram was really important for generating brand awareness and filling the top of the funnel and communicating the organisation's culture, etc. But ultimately, when we're providing this information back to senior decision makers, they're going to care about money in the bank. So that direct revenue attribution is so critical. There are of course lots of other KPIs that we can look at. So if you're an e-commerce company, you're going to be really obsessed with average transaction order, for example, or top performing conversion paths. If you have a funnel within the website, then you're going to want to track every stage of that funnel and see where people are dropping out. There are going to be all sorts of KPIs, all sorts of metrics that are going to be really important to you in a specific way. But those four that I've just talked through, I would argue, are absolutely universally fundamental to the performance of every single website. So if you start with those, or even just a couple of them, and look at them day after day, week after week, I promise within a very short period of time, you're going to start to get a sense of what analytics is all about and start to identify other metrics that are of real value, real relevance to your organisation.